to get some data on what you got going on. But first of all, I just want to say what's up, man. How are you?
Good man, good man. Again, thanks for having me. And yeah, man, I also have questions for you too. I'm very interested in what you do and what you're like. You live a yeah, dude.
Sorry,
You're
I
a
just want to make
monster.
sure that the lighting's good right now. Pretty proud, dude. I was watching videos of you, and very seldom do I look at the man and be like, I don't know if I can beat him. Because I was watching you, and you've got these fucking huge arms, dude, and you're whacking into wood, and you can see like the ripples of a mountain range going down the side of your arm. And I was like, I think I'm gonna wear my sleeveless shirt today just to make sure that
Yeah.
homeboy knows I'm pretty tough too. Dude, you're a stallion.
Thanks, man. I think it's a little more. I hate to say it. A little more maybe looks than actual. It doesn't really convert when I go to the gym. I don't push a lot of weight. I've always been in shape and stayed, more in, I guess, more on the endurance side than like strength side. But yeah, I've always had kind of bigger arms without having to try too hard.
But this is always the great conversation, which I love, is the difference between the people who are all show and no go.
Yeah,
And there's this thing when you just see people and you just know that they're gonna kick the shit out of they're gonna kick the shit out of you without even trying. It's like that guy at the bar who doesn't have to say anything,
yeah,
but if he wanted to arm wrestle or beat you up, he'd take you out in a heartbeat.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
What's the name of the guy who's the champion of your sport? He's been like they're out of like West Virginia or something.
Matt Koger, yeah.
He doesn't look like a stud at all.
So that's one of the things I figured we'd get into is, as much as I want to focus on being in the best shape of my life, you don't have to have a six pack to be the best chopper or sawyer in the world, and that's been proved multiple times, man. They're dad bods, man. They're incredible timber sport athletes, but
Yeah.
most of those guys are just choppers and sawyers. They're not the guys speed climbing or log rolling and stuff like that. So that's when you see guys that are more in shape, that are doing all the events rather than just the chopping and sawing.
Well, I think I'm putting the cart before the course here. I really want to I want to set up the red carpet here and make sure that we really have a good road to lead this thing down. So Thomas basically is one of the top guys in the country, if not the world, in timber sport. And there's tons of different facets of this, guys. So I want to make sure that I get it right, and I don't want to wreck this thing. So at any point in time, you can pause me and say, "Hey, Hunter, you can adjust and tell me whatever you think's better to share with everyone." And also, I'm
Yeah,
just curious. I originally linked up with Thomas because I was considering retiring from High Rocks, and I was like, I want to see what else is on the horizon for me as an athlete. Like, I know that I'm not done, and for some reason, I looked at paddling and I looked at timber sport, and two totally random sports.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you were the guy who really popped up. You pretty much got the strongest social media in the game right now. And just so that people, like, I'm going to let you run with this right now. Would you mind just telling some people kind of like a broad stroke of what timber sport is, some of the chapters that you can align yourself in? Because I've seen you do log rolling, I've seen you do pole climbing, I've also seen you do the regular chop. I haven't seen you do much chainsaw work. So, whatever you want to run with, we'd love to learn. I'm here just sitting watching like a movie. So, tell me anything and I'll be fascinated.
Yeah. I'll try not to go down too many rabbit holes because it is hard to condense and explain in like one setting. But basically, timber sports, for one, people don't understand it. It is a professional sport, and it's been around for. I mean, literally,
You're
I
on
think the first.
ESPN forever, dude.
Yeah. But like the sport itself, like started. I think it got there's like record of like the first competition like the early 1900s, like back in Australia. So like the sport, of course, originates from all the techniques and skills they used to use back in the day to harvest timber before they had chainsaws and machines and stuff like that. And of course, there's some chainsaws in the modern day sport now, but all the chopping and sawing and speed climbing and log rolling all kind of come from the things the different ways they harvest timber back in the day. And so from my experience, how I got involved in it is I wasn't a logger or anything like that. I got into it because I grew up in Hayward, Wisconsin, and Hayward, Wisconsin is the home of the lumberjack world
Championships.
championships. And at the world championships, it's hosted once a year in my hometown. But at that same show site, back in like the, I guess, late 70s, they started doing lumberjack shows there. And a lumberjack show is basically like a mock competition. It's a demonstration of the sport in a kind of family friendly way. People pay, buy to come watch the show. We pretty much divide the crowd into two different sections, and they cheer on their team and boo the other. And it's kind of there's
Good
some jokes
times.
stuff, but at the end of the day, we're still doing the sport, and that's how I got involved in it. I didn't really get into it at first to like compete seriously. It was just like a summer gig. I was 16 years old, and they trained me for like a couple weeks, and then threw me into the show. And but from there, of course, you have all the resources to train that you don't just have. You can't just get anywhere else. Of course, the climbing poles, the log rolling,
That's
the
part of the reason why I reached out to you. It is really, really hard to find the product for this stuff. Like I have an axe that looks kind of similar to the one that we're watching in your video, but
yeah.
I wouldn't know where to find a piece of wood that's probably got the steel tip on it. I also don't know the things that hold the logs. It's a
Yeah.
mysterious sport.
Yeah, that's what makes it so hard to like give people access. I get asked all the time, like, how do I get into the sport? And I'm like, you got to know somebody that can kind of walk you through some stuff to at least at the beginning, and then you can kind of go off and start building your own stands and stuff. So basically, yeah, I did this. I got into it as a summer gig, a fun thing to do, with some of my best friends still to this day. But mainly just kind of doing it for show and for pay. And then, of course, one event that I was able to get into seriously at a young age was this in the professional ranks is the speed climbing,
Yep.
mainly because it's the cheapest sport. You got a couple $100 in your gas and rope, and that's all you need to be a speed climber. So I would go, and there's not a lot of speed climbers in the world. So I was able to compete at the world championships in the 60-foot and 90-foot, when I was like 19 years old.
Just to give somebody a little bit of understanding, what would be the major difference between the 60-foot and the 90-foot? Is it really just stamina or speed?
So for one,
Like I'm watching this right now. That's got to be exhausting.
yeah, so that's in British Columbia, Squamish. That's an 80-foot climb. And so the difference at the World Championships, there's a 60-foot traditional climb and a 90-foot open. And basically the open is a modified gaff. And the 60-foot is the traditional, where, a traditional lineman's gaff is just a gaff that's pretty much just a piece of steel that goes from like, the top of your calf and wraps around the bottom of your foot, and you strap it on there with pads and stuff.
Yep.
And it sits kind of on the arch of your foot, and it's almost kind of like if you were running flat-footed and kind of bow-legged to present the gaff to the tree right. That's the traditional climb, and that's what we use in the 60-foot. But
what's a good time for a 60-footer?
A good time up and down, if you're breaking under 14 seconds, like if you're in the 13 seconds range, you're pretty fast. The world record is 12.28 seconds.
Wow.
That's moving.
Now, would that person be a bigger guy, or is that just like a little string bean?
I personally think a guy that's like 170 is a good, I think like 160 to 180, yeah, is like a good weight if you're athletic. I think I'm on the bigger side.
What do you
But
weigh?
that being said, one of the best climbers in the world he's a little tall. I think he's a little taller than me, but probably the same weight. But he was like a track athlete. You can probably find, his name's Brian Barteau, and the dude he's just makes it look effortless. And
Am I Googling that guy for me,
You
Ryan?
could.
Brian Barteau?
yeah. If I'm trying to think if I could show you or find it on my Instagram.
By the way, dude, I really do appreciate your podcast setup. I think you and I spoke maybe 2 months ago, and I was like, hey, man, like I really think you should try this out and this out. I think like you're interesting, and I think you probably got really cool culture and people would follow into it. I don't know if you had this set up behind you already, but you got this good looking studio behind you. You got
I built
boom.
it's just this little bar in my basement that me and my girlfriend did, and I never use it. I mean, I don't really have a lot of my good friends around this area, so it's just got its unused bar, and it's kind of a cool setup. So when I did finally go, okay, I'm going to start the podcast, I got the mic and the headset, and then I was just like, this is where I'm going to do it because I can kind of chill, and it can be quieter down here. So thanks, man. I'm just
This is
going
a reach out. Who's Cecil Starr?
He's another timber sport athlete. I haven't even met him, but I know, I'm trying to think of where he's even from. I think he's a guy that kind of came before my time a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying I think he was a little more relevant. I think.
Hey, Tom, how do I spell Brian Bartow?
Okay, so if you scroll down on my Instagram, in the video that you can see 2 poles almost like dead center of the screen, it's actually a really cool video. And this just happened. So this guy's like, yeah, that one, the one, scroll down right in the middle. It's in the middle frame. Keep going down. Below the one of the ocean. So that double pole right there. So he's the guy on the left.
This guy's a freak. Dude, that's a tight race. Oh, he just gapped you right there.
The dude is.
And they're heading towards the top part, 80-foot spar trees. It's a two-way race.
Yeah, dude, that's a good 15-second to 18-second vertical race right there.
Yeah, that's a gnarly.
So it's not only how fast you go up, but it's how far.
That's a 60-footer?
That's an 80-footer.
Yeah.
And I did that climbing. I did that climbing like 22 point something seconds, and he did it in like 20. And he's not, dude. That dude's got another gear too.
Like, so where are you feeling that? Is that lats because you're pulling the thing down? Is it the inside of your thighs, or is it just full body, lungs, everything's toast?
Dude, you'd be the greatest to like really dissect that, because I think that's what I've always wanted to do, is like really break it down, because I think it should be more lats. I think I personally need to be using more of my upper body, but I feel it a lot in my legs. My lungs are normally pretty good. It's normally my legs that get tired, but I think it's because I think I need to utilize my upper body more to be more efficient.
Well, I can tell you right now, I'm watching this dude, and his cadence is faster than you.
Yeah.
His cadence is faster than you, and he's only probably going, I can't see your video as well as his because you're sideways, but I can tell you right now his cadence seems a little bit faster.
I think it's because I choke up a little more on the tree, so I'm a little more restricted. I think I need to like kind of loosen up a little bit so I can be, a little more parallel to the tree and not so hunched over.
For sure.
So for the folks that are going to be watching this later, and you guys are climbing, what type of boots are you wearing? Do they have spikes? And then what are you carrying around your hands to leverage yourself to get on up? Is it a belt?
I was gonna bring one of my gaffs. Would you care if I stepped out and grabbed it real quick? I'll show you.
Do whatever, man. We're here for you. We're pumped.
It's right around the corner.
Yeah. This guy's such a badass, dude. I would do anything. Like, if you're like, hey, you can go hang out with like Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps, or you could go hang out with Tom Turbo Lancaster for a week. Tom, every time.
90 foot all the way up there. So obviously you can't be scared of heights. You're like, what are heights? Doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Who gives a shit? Look at him, dude. He is just a Captain Beef, dude. Look at the pythons on this beast.
13-inch pine. I'm assuming pine's a little bit more heavier on.
Yeah, this is another thing I was going to talk to him about. I got this in my notes. We
aren't chopping balsa wood here.
Tell us about wood and how it makes a difference. The cedar for pussies.
All
right, let me remove this.
Mind going to my Instagram real quick, Ryan, and pulling up. There's a video of me taking a log and splitting it in half 3 times. I put it up and I put like a timer down. I want to ask his honest opinion. I need some judging. Yeah. So show us your boots.
All right. So this is like
holy shit. Those are like track shoes.
This is like a traditional lineman's gaff, or tree arborist gaff, like pretty basic. I mean, they've got some nicer pads and stuff, but that's basically it. So we turn and like in competition, we'll put like a fiberglass upper to make it more comfortable, but that's pretty basic. Leather T pad, they call those. And we turn this for the nut. So this is what we race in, other than a different upper and we strap this to a tennis shoe for the traditional 60. And then for the 90, we take, this is basically a cleat of some sort.
Yep.
And you bolt it, the gaff, cut it off and bolt it.
It's like a Frankenstein.
Yeah, so the gaff itself, this spike is more towards the ball of your foot, and then this slides. So now when that gaff goes in the tree, you can push off your toe and basically like move more naturally up the tree. And then you're running compared to the traditionals, more of like a flat-footed.
Now, did you have to build this yourself, like slide and all?
Well, so this thing has the same. You can't see it behind the pad, but it has the same
sliding mechanism.
Upper, and it's just bolted into place because when it's strapped to your foot, in this format, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to slide. But when you're pushing off your toe, it needs to slide. So then you just take the bolt out and you tie a string so it doesn't come apart, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like Kempson would be really good at this. Like Kempson is like he was my roommate for years. This dude can make anything, and he's also just kind of macho. He's from Vermont. You're from Vermont, correct? Currently?
Well, I live in Vermont. I'm from Wisconsin.
Yeah, you were saying that, but where are you at in Vermont now?
Grand Isle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where's that? North,
across
south, east, west.
Yeah, it's pretty far north. It's across Lake Champlain from Plattsburgh, New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're living in somewhat of a populated area. You're not all alone up there in the woods.
No. I mean, I'm about 30 minutes outside of Burlington, so where I'm at is pretty tucked away from anything too crazy. But yeah.
How did you end up there?
What's that?
How'd you end up there?
I met my girlfriend. She manages a fish hatchery here in Vermont. So
always a girl.
She has to live on site and stuff. So
did you meet her at a lumberjack competition?
It was through a mutual lumberjack friend. So yeah.
So what is it like? I'll tell you this story, and you can tell me if it's got a similar kind of presence. My friend and I, this was like 4 years ago, I think. Maybe 3 years ago or something like that. I broke up with my girlfriend, and I was just like, I just need to go out and live life. I need to feel my fingertips burnt a little bit. I need to be wild. So we went straight to this place called the Potato Chip outside of Arizona. Yeah. And it's a bull riding bar. And you can show up, and there's pros. There's straight up pros. And you can just show up and sign your life away for $20 and ride the pros bulls.
Wow.
Yep.
Wait, not mechanical, like.
No, I'm talking about like 1,200 pounds of solid moving meat with its own. It's got its own brain and two eyes. Like it's a real beast.
Where is this at?
It's outside of, so like Phoenix being like right here, drive maybe 30, 45 minutes into the desert to this place called Potato Chip. And you pull up and it's all of these, dually trucks. It's a true cowboy hard bar. Like it's gnarly.
Yeah.
You go in there. You go through this hall of the bar, and there's, it's a normal bar, pretty packed, dance floor, everything like that. And then you come out into this big open, like, theater space, and then there's the ring, and there's stadium seating around it and everything. And you get to go ride the bull. When I sucked. I lasted 2.9 seconds, I think, and I thought that I was on there for a half an hour. And when I got done, I've got mud on me, and I've got the band that showed I did it. And the women came to me like my hair was on fire. Like they couldn't help themselves but just see me and just witness my greatness and come straight to me. Everything changed. The bartenders, the women who were at the bar, it was crazy. And I'm assuming there's got to be somewhat of a presence for you once you finish one of these competitions. Like it's a very machismo thing. You got to have, the girls got to go crazy.
Yeah, well,
I know you have a girlfriend. I'm not trying to drag you into deep water.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. It's just funny because yes, in some stages, like it looks like the coolest thing in the world. I laugh because sometimes I've done shows at like fairs and festivals or like carnivals, and like we're like a step above a carny. So then we go and compete at like the world championships, and then you're kind of a badass. Even though you're doing the same thing, it's like when it's scaled down enough, or if it's you're just doing a show and it's not like it's a kind of a different vibe. So yes, when at times for sure, it can definitely be like that. But I think rodeo and bull riding might be a step above.
Maybe I'm romanticizing things here, but I don't know. You're a hero. I'm sure you're a hero in somebody's world. So tell us about the arc of competing. Like there's multiple stages, and just so you can set the tone for people, obviously the highest level is the Lumberjack World Championships in the Wisconsin where you're from.
Yeah, well, I'd actually say, and for speed climbing, yes,
Yep.
and log rolling, yes, kind of in their own individual worlds there, because there's
Okay.
like, I mean, there's countless of log rollers that come to that event, and they're just log rollers. They don't
Yep.
speed climb, they don't chop, they don't do anything but log roll. And there's a handful of us that are all around guys, but some of the best log rollers in the world don't do any other events. But so the most prestigious um, event currently is what's called the Steel Timber Sports Series, and that's the only, at this moment, only televised event.
Yep.
It was on CBS Sports, and that entails 6 different events. It's 3 sawing events: the single buck, the the hot saw, the souped up hot
Pop,
saw,
pop, pop. Yeah.
and then the stalk saw, which is like a stock, kind of a boring event, to be honest. The stock saw is a brand new 660 off the shelf, 661, and we just make 2 cuts with it within 4 inches. But it's you got to take it seriously, because it's, even though it's not as cool as the other events, because it's a sixth of the points, you know. And
Yep.
then 3 chopping events, which is springboard, standing block, and underhand. So
Have you competed at this level?
yeah, so things are changing with it, but for many years you had to get into the Steel Series, you had to kind of travel to all these other competitions and be able to create a resume for yourself that had times in all these events, and then you could apply to get in. Like, you couldn't just sign up, you have to apply to get in, and to be accepted you had to be ranked in the top 40 in the nation. So pretty much they put out the application and anybody can apply. And then once you submit your application with all your times and all these different events, and you have to put like what type of wood, the size of wood, and stuff like that. Then they rank you. They rank everybody. I guess everyone that applied gets ranked, basically, and they would accept the top 40 in the nation. From there, it would be 5 regions of 8, and you'd go in and you go to a regional qualifier, and you'd have to be top 4 to move on.
Yep.
Last year, I was 5th place by 1 point, so I didn't get to move on.
What happens if there's a tie?
Yeah.
If there's a tie, and
Where's the
again,
drama
You were
here?
1 point away. What happens if you hit that same point as the guy in number 4?
so they've done it differently throughout the years, but I think what they do is they take your overall time. So they add up your time, because everything's a timed event. So they'd add up your time for every event, and whoever had the lowest overall time would move on, I believe. They used to do it where you had to go back and do a stock saw event, which is like the most even keel event, because you're not bringing your own equipment. It's the saw they provide for you. So that used to be a way to do it as well. So what happened was I was ahead by a point, and then we went into the hot saw event, and he made that cut faster than me and moved on.
Damn clean cut.
Yeah.
So if you how do you set up your season? Like, I'll give you an example of my arc, and let's see if we can match these things up. Ideally, in a season, we have North American championships, European championships, then world championships. And then there's like a bunch of open season events that you can also qualify through, but don't really pay a lot, or, they're just kind of times, and they're all over the world. And then world championships, obviously the highest level, you want to win there. For you in this sports, is it more important for you to go to the one in Wisconsin, or is it more important for you in your arc to go to the still championships? And like in our sport, sometimes there's obstacle racing world championships and there's Spartan race world championships. Obstacle racing world championships, even though it is a world title, doesn't really hold the same significance as Spartan race in the buzz of it all. So for you, like if you came up to me and said, yeah, I won the world championships in Madison, is that the pinnacle? Is that where everybody wants to be? Or is it more important for you in your arc to be a still champion?
So
I know you do different things, because one's
no,
pull,
it is somewhat similar. So I would say basically there's the world championship, the lumberjack world championships. That's literally what it's called in Hayward, Wisconsin, and that's its standalone event, and that is one of the most prestigious events. But it's this standalone event. It's one weekend, and even if you go and win everything, you're not going to win much. Like, so it's still very prestigious, and there's a lot of pride in that event. And to go there and win any world title is a very big deal.
Totally.
People do set their sights on that, especially again, the log rolling, the speed climbing, because that's not everywhere. So those are very important. And then the chopping event, it's bigger wood, so it's also very prestigious. But what people mostly put their sights on, even more than the World Championships, even though it is the World Championships, is the Steel Timber Sports Series. So like I said, after you move on, like once you get accepted in the top 40, go to your qualifier, and our top 4 out of 8, you move on to your semifinals. Basically, it goes down to you crown a national champion. To be a Steel Series national champion is a very big deal, especially in America, because we have a lot of good timber sport athletes. Yeah. Some of the best. Some will go down as the best that ever did it, that are still currently competing.
Yeah.
From there, the Steel Series has like 23 countries involved in it. So now all these other countries are also crowning national champions. And then
it's really big in Sweden.
What's that?
It's really big in Sweden, correct?
There's Australia and New Zealand are the other 2 that normally win it. So after you win the national champion, you go and represent your country at the Steel Series World Championship. So there's technically 2 world championships, but the Steel Series, it's a bigger deal. For one, it's televised on national television, and it's more money. I mean, they used to give out, the winner was winning for the national champion was winning a brand new Dodge Ram truck.
Fuck.
Yeah. So that Matt Koger won like 4 of them.
Dang it, dude. That's way better than I was saying. Dude, a couple years ago, I won the world title in High Rocks, and they gave me $2,500 and a bottle of beer.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it.
Yeah. So like when I won my world title at the 90 foot, like I won a couple grand, but it's like, so it's
rad though. You're a world champion.
Yeah.
Something I want to say real quick. I have this conversation often enough when I'm with other athletes, and just because it's important to note, like technically in the world of, like, if we're looking at values, sure, our sports may not pay us the most amount of money, but in the currency of being a champion, I'm rich. We're stacked. Like being a world champion is worth more than a degree sometimes. Being a world champion is just something that you literally cannot take away. It can't disappear in a bank account. It holds a value that literally stands forever. And for me, honestly, it's extremely important. Like I chose to get into the arc of sports because I put more value on that than going to be like a hedge fund guy like my brother. And, even though we may not be rich people, we're rich in here, which I think is a really quality and amazing place to be. So honestly, dude, being a world champion, hats off to you. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you saying that.
What was the event, by the way?
That was the 90-foot speed climb. I think that's pinned at the top of my Instagram profile.
Let me go back to it. Hey, Tom, what's it like traveling through security like TSA? Obviously, you're traveling to these different countries, maybe different states. Do you just have to flag it and say, I'm wielding an axe with me that's very large and could do a lot of damage? But
I try not to say anything just because I know sometimes it does just delay the process, or like I've had people like, oh no, that's got to go through international stuff, or the different security. So I just I'm more concerned about, is my axe going to travel safe without getting messed up?
Yeah. What do you fly with it in? I'm sure like a leather case or whatever.
I basically like a hard plastic case, and I'll put the sheath on, and then I'll like tape the sheath on. So like, cause if you're moving around in the sheath, it'll cut through the sheath. So I'll put like cardboard and maybe even like a pair of Carhartts and really tap it. So it's like all of it's padded. So everyone kind of does it their own way. Man, if you could, flying with stuff just kind of sucks. But yeah, you have to wrap it up and hope to God it makes it, and hope to God they don't want to open up your stuff and take their sheath off and not put it back properly.
Have they done that?
Yeah. Especially unless you have it really wrapped, and like sometimes you even put like a note in there like, hey, these are extremely sharp, very dangerous. It's best to keep them where, like, I don't know. So, and then what's harder is like the crosscut saws, or some people ship their hot saws. They have to like ship their whole motor separately, and Matt Koger actually sent one overseas and it never showed up. Like someone, I don't know. He never got his hot saw, and those things are like $10,000.
It never showed up ever?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Seas, and it like I think he tracked it down years later, but
Dude, that's so nuts.
so it's flying with it's difficult, and the axes aren't that big of a deal, but it's the other stuff is.
Which one were we looking at? 10 ways to
that
die?
one.
This one?
That's like the second half of it. You'd have to I think have to scroll down to see the.
Tom, how big are you?
I'm 6'3", 220.
Oh shit, you're huge.
Oh, thanks, man. How big are you? I feel like you're bigger than me.
I'm just an inch shorter than you, and I'm 212 right now. So, I mean, listen, you can tell that you're a big guy, but you were just talking about, I was assuming you were probably like 5'11", because you were like maybe 170 and you're a little bit bigger, dude. You're weighing 50 pounds more than the guys you're competing against in pole climbing.
Dude, the speed climb is, I think I'm a little, like, I think if there was more of a career in speed climbing, I would get a little thinner.
If you had to say, like, there's one event that everybody wants to win, like, what's the most macho event of the six ones or speed climbing and rolling? Like, what's the one?
So it's tough.
The standing on the wood one looks like the most intimidating, where you're going straight into your toes.
So that's like the safest event.
One.
So this springboard event is, I think, is it's the most dangerous chopping event,
because you can misplace the wood.
Well, you're relying on that pocket that you chopped, and you're swinging as hard as you can. Once you get up to that I fucked this pocket up. I should have sent it right there, and then I went for one more cleanup hit, and I fucked up the pocket, so I had to go back. And that's the thing with that. You miss one hit on that by like an inch or a half an inch, and I had to go back for 6 more to clean it up. So those guys are already. The guy behind me is one of the best. He had the national record. The guy in the green shirt had a national record at one point, so I don't mind losing to him. He's really good at this event. But he's about 175. He can fly up those. He can get up to the top a little better than I can too.
And so the top is you gotta chip
now
off.
You're chopping that block. Yep, you go about 3/4 of the way through, and then you turn to your backside, and some people switch hit, will swing left-handed, and I do a slicing technique.
That Kogar guy seems like he swings like 5 or 6 times, and the wood's just dead.
Dude, man, I tell you what, I like videotape him when I go to competitions if I'm not in the heat with him, and like try to like dissect like what is he doing different, like. I don't know. It's got
to be all angles, because think about it. Like if you're punching somebody and you can hit like right on the dot versus just a little bit off, you're always kind of just ricocheting energy. Right. That guy has to have probably the best hand-eye coordination of anybody, because I can imagine you're probably throwing your arms into that wood a lot harder than he is.
Yeah. So it's definitely the angle of the chops for sure. Like to be able to like, and that's the thing is like, you're so close to like, when you do that, like glancing like down and away or whatever. So it's like, once you get confident in your swing and you know the angle you're supposed to go, and you're like, it's just axe placement and be able to like, a lot of times like you kind of end up getting timid at first when you're kind of adding more angle to your chop, but like he's like just so committed. But on top of that, he has some that, he knows how to make an axe cut better than most people too. Like he's got some of the best equipment,
sharpening axes and stuff.
Maintain it. So
I'm going to ask you a question here that may be interesting. I have a bunch of wood up in my cabin, and all of it's cedar, and I'll make videos of me chopping this wood, and people will just rip into me. They're like, "You're a pussy. That's cedar." I'm swinging as hard as I possibly can, by the way.
Dude, people don't know it. You're fine. I think you would do fine. I think strength-wise and stamina, you have what it takes to crush.
I'm just wondering,
what's your top? Yeah.
Is it really is wood that much different? I mean, I know you guys are chopping white pine mostly, but is it like just infinitely different?
So it's infinitely different when you're cutting into the block rather than splitting it. I will say that. Like that's just a different. There's a lot more going on there as far as like lining up your driver. So like when you open up a block, you've got your drive hits and then your chip hits. So you're like these are cutting wood and these are removing wood.
Yep.
And then from every chopping event, you have to cut it from both sides. And that's also the most efficient way to do it.
Yep.
So then you turn to your backside, and to line up those drivers, and all those angles have to come together perfectly. Like that's what
And you're
people
all
are
doing this in like 20 seconds. You're analyzing wood,
some
right?
of these guys, I don't know if I could find a good video right this second, but Matt Koger, man, he's got world records he's doing a 12-inch standing block in like 12 seconds. I mean, he's a monster. He destroys wood. Yeah.
So let's get into the nitty gritty. Tell me some of the more like dangerous stories here. What are some of the fear factors that come along with the sport? Because I think that's something that is like really would probably keep most people away from it, because you're like, one, you can drop from a 90-foot pole. Two, you can chop your foot off. Three, you could saw your leg off. Like, what is the fear factor there? What's the like the error opportunity here? Like, when was the last time you hurt yourself? Because I know you had surgery. Like, is this a sport that takes a chunk out of you every time you go out there?
Yeah. So it's like, I've been doing it. This is going to be my 19th year. So I've got
How old are you?
I'm 30. They're going to be 34. So I'm 33 right now. I started when I was 16. I count that. Yeah, I think whatever the math is, it's like 18, 19 years I've been doing it. And I got into it away. And with me being a, kind of stubborn dude. Yeah. I think you can scroll down and see this whole video. If you do, it is on my page, but it's just a little farther down, on the right.
Like, did you just parallel out and hit that pad?
So keep going. Keep going. I think I'm just trying to help you. Yeah. Keep going down. It's far, a little, yeah. So speed climbing is definitely the most dangerous. Okay, yeah, keep going down on this right there. That one right there. Yep. We can watch this. So the guy on the right is the guy who taught me how to speed climb when I was 16. And he does a hip slide technique. And I won't go down the rabbit hole too much, but basically we both end up turning to our hips, but I end up putting in a big bail like 20 feet and put my first two gaffs in, and then I turn to my hip. He's hip sliding from the top. Hip sliding is a non-conventional way of coming down. It's kind of a loophole. I've only done it when I've been I kind of let it happen in this race. Usually you try to keep your feet underneath you like you saw Brian do and just fly down the pole in control with that rope. But if you get bunched up and you start losing control, it's hard to maintain that speed. So, over years, people discovered if you turn to your hip, you can keep that momentum and then put your gas in underneath your leg to make it a legal climb. So I had a couple slips and knew I was behind, so I sent it here.
This is where you broke your foot?
No, I didn't get hurt in this climb.
That didn't hurt at all?
No.
You're like a stunt man, dude. That was crazy.
So I didn't get hurt there because I know it looks like I am moving really fast. I mean, that's close to getting hurt, close to losing control, but I was on my rope, even though it doesn't look like it. And I hit and there's a lot, the way I hit the pad, I was safe.
And that was a controlled fall.
That was as close to it. Yeah, as close as you can get to not being in control. Wow. So
how did you break your foot?
Okay, so yeah, you were asking like risk factor, injuries, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'll start with the speed climbing. Obviously, log rolling's the least has the least concern of injury. I mean, you got spikes on your shoes that I've seen people get stitches and stuff, but that's rare. And you'll bang up yourself, but that you're not going to get hurt much in log rolling. So speed climbing is by far the most dangerous and the hardest on your body. And a lot of people don't climb as long as I have, or Brian has, or even Cassidy. Cassidy's has a lot of years into it too. So basically, if you're not using that rope properly and you're coming down fast, trying to learn, even when you're learning, trying to come down fast, if you're not in the right position, you're going to be hurting yourself. Oh, this is a sweet climb. This is like back in 2000.
10 years ago.
Yeah, so 13, and I'm wearing swim trunks and steel-toed boots. I'm on the right. I'm on the right there. So yeah, when you're young, you learn how to climb up the pole. You kind of catch on to that. But it's like the art of the sport of speed climbing is all in the down. And when you're young and don't know how to do it gracefully, you're kind of throwing yourself down the pole to get a good time or to beat somebody. And that's where people bang their bodies up. Just coming flying down a pole and not hurting them, hurting themselves, not knowing what they're doing really. Like that's just like that's not a great down. That's me, right? Like kind of almost free falling and throwing gas.
Kamikaze.
So how I hurt myself, I was doing the 90-foot climb, and I was long story short, I was about 80 feet. And like I said, this part slides. And what happened was this is attached to my calf, obviously. Yep. And this is a different version than I had back then, but basically it came loose and like slid down. So this was just like a jumbled mess around my ankle. So I couldn't really climb efficiently anymore. So I did finish the climb, but I kind of walked and touched the line and then kind of had to kind of scoot back down. It was like my climb was basically over. So I was trying to get down safely. And again, if your rope's not in the right position, I went to drop to the pad and I was trying to just hit the pad with my feet and hit land square. But that gaff on my left foot grabbed the tree like right as I was about to hit the pad. And I wasn't really on my rope very much. So it was just like all my weight on that ankle and kind of cranked her over.
Oof.
I was told it was a bad sprain and climbed and did lumberjack shows on it for like a year. Came back to the world championships, was in a 60-foot race, lost control of my rope, like out of one hand, lost it completely out of one hand, and was like, again, kind of just coming down the tree, smashing my legs against the tree, trying not to like, try to save myself in some way because I had no control of my rope at this point. And I got done with that climb and my right ankle hurt. And so I went back. I was working in Alaska at the time. I went and got both my ankles MRI'd, and both of my ankles were broken.
What?
One of them like fractured. I mean, nothing, not totally broken, but like both had fractures, and one needed the one I was on for a year needed surgery. So then I got surgery in 2015, went back to speed climbing and stuff. But over the last few years, it's kind of really started to bother me again, and restricted my range of motion, which is like just kind of left me very limited. Anytime I'm trying to really train and do anything really athletic, or even squats and deadlifts, like I don't have that ankle mobility. So I'm kind of like out of alignment when I'm doing stuff like that. And it's just hard to do certain things. And I finally got it checked out, and they went in there and removed a bunch of bone spurs and actually found like another little chip fracture or a little chip bone fragment, and took that out of there too. And
jeez, dude.
So that's.
Have you had anything any more major than that? I mean, have you ever seen anybody take anything like a toe or a?
People have taken toes off. I haven't seen that. I've seen people like totally dislocate knees.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking, dude. When those gaffs come in, it's got to be, if you just really hooked in, so much torque going up through that knee joint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's like I'm lucky to have good knees, but my ankles have taken the brunt of it. And a lot of people, like they hurt themselves once and they're kind of like, I'm good. Like, I don't need to go back to that sport. And they like, there's the thing is, there's only like 5 speed climbing competitions in the world, and they're all in like America or Canada. And even if you went around and won all of them, there's not that much money in it. So it's like only us crazy people are the ones that are like ride and die to this.
What do you have your sights set on this year?
So, sorry, just to go back up a little bit, you're asking about safety and stuff like that, or risk factor. We do wear safety equipment when we're chopping. You might not, I think I've told you that, like we wear the chainmail socks and the guards for our legs. So we do try, we're not, everyone's so scared about us cutting our feet, like we do have some protection on there to help us prevent that.
Still gonna hurt.
Now you're seeing less injuries from that. Accidents still can happen. I mean, it's still a really dangerous event, especially the springboard. But Yeah, there is some safety.
We have this thing I call the one chop challenge up at my house, and I probably should stop doing it because I've almost watched so many people lose their legs. I put a stump out on top of my chopping like stump, and
Yeah,
I tell everybody, I'm like, it's the one chop challenge. Like, if you can get through this in one chop, like you're a hero.
yeah,
And everyone comes up and no one ever makes it. And most of the time, it's usually the second or third time that they go for it that the problems happen. They swing and nick the edge of it, and the axe comes straight through down to their legs and goes straight towards their legs and toes. And I'm like,
yeah,
I gotta stop doing this.
yeah. No, I see people online sometimes doing things, and I'm like, oh, what scares me is when I see people like chopping at a tree, like we do in the standing block.
Mm-hmm.
It takes. I've seen it happen so many times, and I've done it myself. Like just the slightest bit of wrong angle, and it wants to. A glance happens,
Boom,
so fast. You
yep.
You can't. You're not going to stop it.
So what do you have your sights set on this year? Like, if you had to set your schedule up, like, what are your goals? What are you going for? Are you out of the running because of your foot or?
I'm going for my 2-week checkup today on my ankle. The long-term goal for me is to be healthy again and to go back to speed climbing and log rolling professionally as hard as I can.
Yep.
But I'd like to not be as hard on my body. I want to climb like Brian and be smooth and efficient. So like getting myself back to 100% for climbing and rolling. And
yep.
if that doesn't happen this year, like I'm not going to push it before I'm ready. So
yep.
getting myself healthy is priority number one. But I am going to go to compete at the World Championships.
Yeah.
Because my ankle won't really affect my chopping and sawing that much. If anything, like I would be limited in the climb. Like I'm going to all right, I'll climb, but I can take it easy. I might not be going balls out this year. So there's that. But the Steel Series I was mentioning, they usually take the top 40 in the nation. And
you got to be there right now, aren't you?
Well, I had no problem getting in, yeah. And then they recently changed it to top 24. Like they told us like a month ago and said, hey, we're only taking the top 24. There's no qualifiers. Top 24 goes straight to the semifinals. And I don't know where I'm like on the bubble because I kind of had a couple bad events last year that maybe ranked me a little lower. I don't know. So it's like, I'm not sure. So like normally my sights still will be on, improving and getting ranked higher and all that. But I don't know if I'm in the Steel Series this year yet. I just applied at the end of January and I won't find out probably the end of this month. I'll find out. And then if I get in, my sights will be on to do some damage there, redeem myself.
What I like to hear.
Yeah. And then either way, I'll be going to the World Championships and trying to really prove myself as a chopper and sawyer again. You kind of constantly feel like you have to do that against some of those guys. It's tough. Some of the people that are ranking are other athletes too. So sometimes there's a little bit of who a little in this sport, which sucks.
Well, I mean, you seem to have the biggest social media in there, and I know that's like kind of a cheap entry in, but at the same time, it's like you're very competitive. When I was looking up this sport, you were the first person to come to list. Like you hold a lot of value. Like that Kogar guy, no offense to him, but he posts like once every 6 months.
Yep,
so if they're in the position of trying to grow the sport, because I called the wood chopping championships. I contacted Still. They got a hold of me and I was like, oh, hey. And like, we had this just shoot the shit kind of conversation. I was like, so how does anybody get involved in this? They're like, well, that's kind of hard to explain. I'm like, well, where's the information on it? They're like, well, that's hard to explain too. And I was like, who do I talk to? And they're like, well, there's a couple guys and your name is always like the top 3 names that come up.
Oh, cool.
So
I've worked hard because it's just like when I say you $300 and you got or maybe let's say $500, you got all the gear you need to be a world champion speed climber.
Yeah, that's awesome.
To be a world champion chopper and sawyer, which basically like when I say that, like Steel Series, not even, you're either like when you're a chopper and sawyer, you're kind of all in with all the events. It's not just like I like the standing block chop because that won't really get you anywhere. You have to kind of like them all and be all in with all of them. That's just so much money, man. Like those guys will come with like a couple dozen axes and like have them all like top notch and like test, like I've
It's
got,
like being in NASCAR. Like you got to
yeah,
buy the car first before you can get involved in the sport.
yeah. So it's like I'm acquiring equipment, trying to trying to put money towards the sport as quickly as I can. But in the meantime, I'm kind of just stuck with what I have, and it is what it is. So that's a little bit of a longer road to I guess get to the top in the chopping and sawing world.
Yeah. What's your day-to-day life like? Like what do you do for a living? Like how do you get by when you're not chopping wood?
So yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to bring up is that's the whole push for social media. Me and my buddy Mark started doing it and getting a lot of followings. I still not great at monetizing it. I make a little bit, but not enough to pay for a full-time living yet. So my goal is to do that, because that way I can do what I love without relying on the money from professional competition. Even when I am one of the best and making good money, I still want to. This is more of a consistent income if I can make money on social media. So what I
What's the
do
name
is
of that guy? Sorry, what's the
you
name of
could,
the guy who looks like a OnlyFans like softcore porn star who chops wood?
oh, Thorson Bradley.
Nothing
Yeah,
against him,
yeah,
but that guy does get a lot of attention and he has this kind of viral energy around him.
yeah,
But it's the difference between like using a model to represent a brand or using an athlete to represent a brand, and it just
yeah,
depends on their alignment, because like honestly you get so much engagement, it's very easy for you to grab eyeballs. Like I saw a post that you had the other day, Barstool Sports was commenting on it, so it's like the people
yeah.
that matter are paying attention.
Yeah.
So you're right on the cusp, man. I mean you're in a great position.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, I am. I'm like missing something to like really bring in some money. Like I need to get into some brand deals. I don't have a product or a service I'm selling, so it's
You
like,
started doing I saw your other Instagram, you've got wood carvings.
oh yeah. So yeah, you asked me what is my day to day. I sell chainsaw carvings,
Yeah.
and I got a part-time job serving and stuff.
Yeah.
If I need to, that's something I'll always pick up. I'm trying to avoid, picking up a full-time job, because it takes away from everything else I'm doing.
Yep.
So basically how I'm making good money this last summer and this summer is I'm going to go work up in Alaska at the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show. So I'm going to go and do shows day in and day out as my full-time job starting in May. I'm going to drive from here to Alaska in April, and I'll be up
How
there for
the
about
hell?
be
What
up
is
there
that,
for
like
5 months. What's
10-day
that?
drive?
Yeah, well, I'll take like a week at least. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so then I'll be up there till October, and I'll make good money doing that show. And then I'll leave and go compete as well. But in the future, I'd like to not have to sign a seasonal contract and leave my home and everything. And I'd rather be traveling and competing and gaining rank, and kind of doing that instead while making money on social media. But right now it's just, I don't bring a lot of money in social media, so I got to do other stuff.
Dude, we got to get you on the podcast circuit. We got to introduce you to some really cool brands. Obviously, like we're in your corner. Whatever we can do, we'll send
I
you as much
appreciate it.
builder
Yeah.
product, house product, anything like that we can send your way. I think what you're doing is absolutely awesome, man, because chasing the dream of being an athlete, I think is awesome, because we're not football players. We don't get that football money and just show up with
Yeah.
a helmet, and whether or not we play, get paid. Like you got to do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. I thought it was cool that you reached out to me, because I mean, obviously you've reached the top of your sport, but you're kind of same thing. You're like, it's not like all that much money, even when you're the best. Like you find ways to still do what you love and make an income. It's cool to see.
Dude, I mean, like
And you
it's
hustle,
a
man.
I do hustle. So get this. I was supposed to, I haven't really announced this, but I don't really give a shit. Like, it doesn't have to be done formally. I was trying to go into the Olympics for paddling. And
Right.
there's this whole kind of, you were just saying there's a system to get involved.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the data right on how to get in. So I was supposed to qualify in what I believe was August so that I could compete the rest of the year for all the Olympic qualifiers.
Yeah.
Now I'm understanding that the event that I have to get number one in the nation in is April, and I'm just not there. Like
Oh,
it
dang,
would just
right.
take so much time for me to
Yeah.
pack everything that was supposed to be up until August down to April. There's no way. So I will not be able to qualify or compete in anything for the United States for this year.
Dang.
So I immediately cut that out. And by the way, $4,500 boat, two
Yeah.
paddles, which cost me, over about, I bought 3 paddles actually. So I'm about $1,000 into paddles, my coaching membership, buying the roof rack for the thing. So I'm about 10 grand in on all the time I invested into this thing, and it's all gone.
So are
And
you going to go back to it when you can, but you have to wait?
I have to wait 1 whole year. So I will
Okay.
start competing. I will start training for the whole rest of the year, but I cannot compete at all. But for me,
Yeah.
I personally am not going to give up 33, which is like a peak year of physical fitness. Like I've got all of this wisdom and physicality I've built over the years,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to waste this year. So I immediately I sit there and I'm sad and I feel all these feelings like, man tears. I'm like, "Ugh, how do
Yeah.
I handle these emotions?"
Yeah. Yeah.
I call my coaches. I call a couple of my, just people who have been in my corner forever. And I was like, what do I do here? Like, do you think we can pull this off again, go back to High Rocks and go win the world title? And they're like, done. Just get to work. We're doing X, Y, and Z. And that's what we're going to go in. We're going back for the world title again.
Hell yeah.
So I start making the phone calls, dude. We're literally going to Dubai for an event that's not really part of this in the beginning of March. Then I go to Greece. Then I go to Stockholm. Then I go to Hamburg. Come
Wow.
back here for a month to train. Then I go over to London for 2 weeks before qualifying, and then I go compete. And that whole thing is a whole nother amount of money just to get it done.
I
And
can imagine just the travel alone.
yeah, so
Was that
that.
all High Rocks?
That's all going to be High Rocks, except for
That's
the
all
first
High
event's called the Government Games. It's an event that they put on in Dubai where they, take chapters of the government, whether it's like the police force, the treasury, whatever the heck they call it over there.
Yeah.
They compete and then they bring in pros and we all kind of clash and see who's the best.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, but that all came about, and I think I recognized while going through the stress of understanding rebuilding my season, I sat there with myself and I was like, I'm so lucky to even be able to have these conversations with myself and other people to know that I even have the chance to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
First I was like, shit, this is a lot of work. Then I was like, wait a second, this is a lot of opportunity.
Wait, so are you competing in Chicago in next weekend?
No. But
Anaheim?
I may do Anaheim, but at this point, it's just a qualifying time. It's not like we can either qualify, by the way, Tom, through national championships in the United States, European championships, or be a top 15 time in the world or top 10 time in the world.
Can you give me a brief description of High Rocks? Just because I kind of know what it is, but if you could tell it again.
So here's the marketing story that I've built around this thing, and I'm kind of lying through my teeth here because in reality, they've never really put a package around it to fully describe it. But the way I tell it to people is they basically took all of these tests in world championship level sport and Olympic sport and put them in succession. So there's
one race.
In one race. So there's 8 stations and there's a stadium built like this, and the stations are all stacked inside of here. And we'll do either 2 to 3 laps around, which equals 1,000 meters. You enter here, and then you go to your first station, which is Nordic skiing, 1,000 meters.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
And
the next
on
one
machines.
on the machines. Obviously it'd be crazy if we were on skis. I would love that. The next machine station is sled push, which is kind of like bobsled. The next station is sled pull, which is like strongman. Next one is burpee broad jump. That's just proficiency in movement. Fourth one is 1,000 meter row, Olympic rowing. Next one is farmer carry, 200 meters with 275 pounders.
Okay.
The 7th one is 100 meter lunge with 65 pounds on your back. That's just capacity and movement. And then the last one's 100 wall balls. And in reality,
throwing the ball, right?
Yeah, you squat down, throw it up, squat down, throw it up. And it's a capacity thing. Yeah, it's a capacity thing where it's nothing in there so technical by any means. Like a 5-year-old could do it technically. It'd be really hard for them.
I see what you're saying, but I kind of sometimes I wish I would have looked into more, endurance kind of racing, because I have some natural endurance. Of course, I would suck at anything like that right now, but I like the simplicity of you just fucking go.
That's where my heart and soul's in, dude.
I love that. I love that.
I think that when I taper out of this beat my body to death thing, I would like to get more into stuff like you guys are doing, where I would like to observe more of the technicality and just really learning every facet of a sport, kind of like a golf swing. But my younger years have all been spent on just absolutely annihilating myself, and I love it.
Well, yeah. Well, and same with me with the sport, like in maybe in a little different, I guess, format, but like speed climbing, I was just like I said, destroying my body growing up. And then now I look at Brian, and Brian, by the way, has had like no injuries in the sport, like none. And like it's because his father was a speed climber and his uncle was a speed climber, and probably his grandpa. Like he's like grew up. Anybody that's like really great in sport has like generations behind them that like set them up, which is, I mean, they put in the work, but like Brian is so smooth. Like he loves speed climbing and can still speed climb. He's in his 40s doing that, like, because he didn't destroy his body. And like, I'm doing that now. I'm like, I want to climb to my potential, but I don't want to hurt my body doing it anymore. Cause I can see someone doing it. I've seen it done where you can climb without killing your body. So like, that's kind of my goal with speed climbing. I don't need to throw myself down a pole anymore to prove anything.
Well, for you, I was watching it, dude. How often do you do plyometrics?
Not enough.
So for you,
to be honest, man, I haven't, I train like sporadically depending on like what I'm doing with the sport and stuff. So it's like, I definitely would love to. I actually had a question for you, because I know you made a post once that said like, you can't combine a mobility program and a sprint program and a weightlifting. Like you can't like grab all these different programs and expect them to work. Like,
no.
I like the idea of like really dialing down what is necessary for me to achieve my goals and really, really go at it hard. Cause I think I could,
if I were you,
work
I would
out more consistently and be more effective.
If I were you and I was going to design your program, if you want to be the speed climbing world champion this year, I would start once you're healed, healthy.
Yeah.
You would start this plyometric program where you'd practice really like putting a clock on. And first we just put like maybe like a 12-inch box in front of you, and we put tape down, an X on the box, and your feet have to hit the line every single time. So X, 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 X.
Yeah.
You have to literally hit your hand-eye coordination or foot-eye coordination needs to be so dialed in that 15-second window. And then you have to increase the amount of repetitions that you're able to do, because the one thing I watched with you was cadence. That guy's going faster with cadence.
Yeah.
Then once you perfect cadence and you perfect hand-eye coordination, then we can start establishing power. Then we're going to start getting into machines where literally I would put you on an assault bike for 15 seconds, 20 seconds. And I'd be like, dude, every single week, we're going to either add a little bit more volume or we're going to add a little bit more power to the amount of volume that you do, and be able to see how much we can crank out of this system in a 10 to 15 second window.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is literally the hand-eye coordination, where we're just going to do repetitions where literally you're holding a pole, you just put a log in front of you, and I want you to just practice. You're going to put tape from literally your ribs, high ribs, to your eyes. And I want you to do this for 30 seconds as hard as you can. If you miss the tape at all, you have to reset.
Yeah. I love it.
And it's for you, dude, literally, once you get that down, it's kind of just like what I was doing with paddling. Sure, I have more power than the other guys in the boat, but if I'm not hitting the water perfectly with the paddle, I'm wasting energy. Just like with your axe, if you're hitting it the wrong angle,
100%.
You're dispersing energy improperly.
Yeah.
And dude, it literally, I did the math in my head, and this is how I was going to qualify for the Olympics. I recognized that these guys were doing about 70 paddle strokes per minute. So 60 to 70 paddle strokes per minute in a 4-minute race, 240 reps. Whoever can and I would do the math backwards. Whoever could generate the most power over 240 reps will win this race. And you need to do the same exact thing on the log.
Yeah, no, that's funny you say that, because I was talking to a guy named Sterling Hart, who's a world record holder in like 3 different speed climbing events around the world and around North America. And there's nothing overseas for 2-way climbing anyways. But yeah, he was a monster, and he like broke these world records and then like stepped away from speed climbing. And I was talking to him at Squamish last year, and he said he would videotape people or watch video of other speed climbers and watch how many throws they went from the bottom to the first line to the second line to the top. And he goes, that's what he knew he had to do. And he always says, like, every line he crossed, he would try to move his feet faster and like up his cadence if he could. And then I started doing it too. like started counting Brian's throws and stuff. So you're absolutely right. I need to figure out how to get that cadence.
A lot of sport that's not technical, like is about repetitions and how many times can you take the repetitions and either cut some off or add more. So either you increase the cadence, like they found out that basically with the way that what Lance Armstrong's oxygen system worked, that they could increase his cadence, and that's how he would beat people. Because
Wow.
most people were doing like 75 to 80 rotations per minute, and they brought his up into the 90s plus.
Wow.
And people tried to keep on with him, and they couldn't do it. And once they changed his formula, like obviously there was a lot of performance enhancers and stuff, but you can put nitrous inside of a car, and if it has the wrong way of making it work, it's not going to really be valuable. They found the formula applied with his extracurriculars, and they made him the champion. And like I think the same for you. I would work on that. I would sit down and talk with you any day, dude, because I love what you're doing, and we're supporters of it, and we want to see you be a world champ again.
Yeah, dude, that'd be awesome for sure. No, I feel like I'm more of I was kind of strict. I have like more strict movements. Like I want to be so technical that I don't want to waver. But some of those guys that are climbing, they're just a little more loose and they're not so worried about technique. They're just trying to move quick. And like you said, yeah, get those repetitions in. But yeah, man, I mean, I've got, again, I want to get healthy, and then I've got a full summer of shows, which shows I'm at the point in my career where I can kind of be easy on myself in shows, even though I am doing all the events, but I won't be able to get into a program very seriously, unfortunately, once the season starts and with my surgery. But
you got all spring
in the fall. What's that?
You got all spring.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like right now I'm still in my boot. So I'm going to try to get that healthy. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what I'm not sure what my capabilities will be before I leave in April. So I'm leaving like April 15th.
Really?
Yeah, so I've got a couple months there to just kind of get healthy. But I was thinking in the fall, I might get in contact with you and maybe really try to dial in. I'll pay you to write me a program.
No, dude, we support champions. We want to see you be the champ, dude.
Yeah, I want your knowledge. I want your brain in this sport because I think it would help a lot.
If I can give you any vote of confidence just to make you feel a little bit stronger in the position you're in, I tore this ankle's ligaments at a stadium race in, I think, late February, mid-February
of last year.
Yeah. No. Sorry. This is 2018. And it was in April, and our world championships were in June. Tough Mudder X, which is a really hard 1 mile championship with 10 fitness stations and 10 obstacles. And
in 1 mile.
1 mile. It's called the world's hardest mile.
Jesus.
And I tore the ligaments. I jumped off of a staircase and landed and tried to pivot, and I tore the ligaments. I went to the doctor. The doctor said, you need surgery. You're not going to run for 6 months, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no. I walked away. I contacted the PT because I was training in Park City at the time. I contacted the PT for all the ice skaters who were going to the Olympics because those guys, they pop their ankles all the time because of the velocity and the slipping of the ice. And I was like, hey, man, I got my world title in like 7 weeks and I want to run. I didn't do any running for 3 weeks, and he built stability with me with different kinds of plyometrics. And like I would be on one ankle and he'd throw tennis balls at me because you're kind of like this.
That's awesome.
And I can give you the protocol that he gave me and at least try to help. I don't want to mess up your life, but I'm just saying I'll give you what he gave me.
I would love something. Yeah. No, I'm gonna, once I can start moving and put more weight on it, I want to push it as hard as I can, for sure.
Dude, it's all about just getting back to movement as soon as possible. That isn't going to compromise you. But I won the world title. I got it back, and I was able to. And it sucked. Don't get me wrong. Like I had a lot of Advil that day, but I did what was necessary, and I took some time off afterwards. But dude, we're in your corner. If there's anything we can do to support, where can people find you? Just so we can, I know you got your social media. Is there anything else you want to share before we get off?
Man, basically, the YouTube. I got YouTube channel. It's all Turbo Tom Lancaster. So Turbo Tom Lancaster on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm on Facebook, but not really, whatever. But yeah, so mainly those, and all those usually have my link to the other platforms as well. I kind of do my own little podcast just to kind of answer questions on my social media. And then me and another buddy, a couple guys are doing a podcast as well. I'd love to have, in the future, have you on the podcast as well and answer more questions about you. I mean, I get to know you better because
We
got
ready,
a lot
dude.
of stuff to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna post this up. We'll give you some great content afterwards so you can share it.
Appreciate it, man.
And dude,
Yeah, thanks
thank you
again
so
for having
much,
me.
dude. Stay healthy and
All
stay
right, man.
macho, dude.
You too, man. Good luck this year.
Ryan, I'll see you later, dude. Later, brother.
Later, man.
See ya. Thanks, guys.
Yep.